Welcome to Get Paid for Your Pad, the definitive show on Airbnb hosting, featuring the best advice on how to maximize profits from your Airbnb listing, as well as real-life experiences from Airbnb hosts all over the world. Welcome. We are your hosts, Josefa Kapadia and Jasper Rivers.
Get paid for your pad. 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 Get paid for your pad.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Get Paid for Your Pad. Today I am here with a very special guest. He's a really interesting person. He's written over 12 books. He's currently in Thailand and originally from the US, and his name is Chris Backe. Chris, welcome to the show.
Hello, how are you, Jasper?
Very well, thank you. How's life in Thailand?
Life in Thailand is awesome. It is warm. Actually, it's a little rainy today, but being able to go to the beach whenever I like while other people are freezing their butts off in the snow and the ice is kind of nice.
Yeah, I can totally imagine. I've been to Thailand a few times and always had a great time there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you got to beaches where you are right now, eh?
Absolutely. It's not too bad here in Rio de Janeiro.
Yeah, it's always nice to go to the beach. It doesn't matter what time of the year it is. It's funny, on my Facebook feed I have a lot of friends around the world, and a lot of them are suffering from the cold and whatever. And I have a series on my blog that it hopes to warm people up. It might be a little bit late, but if you happen to be suffering from the cold, my blog actually has a lot of beaches on it, a lot of blog posts about beaches. So check it out when you get the chance. The blog is oneweirdglobe.com, and it's actually a series I'm running for December, but it'll be up for a long time to come. So.
Awesome. So now that we're talking about your blog, maybe you can give us a background of who you are and what you're doing. How did you get to live in Thailand and, write books and do all that fun stuff?
Sure. Well, I'm originally from the U.S. I was born near Chicago, Illinois. And in 2008, I got the chance to move to South Korea to teach English to little kids. And this was a huge move. People were like, why are you going to South Korea? Why do you want to go so far away from home? And I said, well, it sounds like an interesting opportunity. And I took it. The next thing I know, I'm teaching English in South Korea. I'm traveling around the country. I made it a point to go to a new place or event or festival or destination, just something new every week. And over time, I built up a blog to tell my friends and family where I was going and what I was doing and such. And over time, I realized that a lot of people were tuning in to read this thing. So I said, awesome, cool. In 2010, I got a domain name, began taking it more seriously, and continued traveling, continued seeing what there was to see around Korea. I started focusing on the unusual, the offbeat, the bizarre sort of destinations, the sort of places that tourists don't really get to. And I've continued that today in Thailand, where I will be coming out with a book in the spring of 2015 that will cover Thailand's weirdest, most unusual, most bizarre sort of destinations. And that just what catches me up to today, the books. I've written over a dozen books and itineraries, all of which are available on Amazon.com. If you search for my name, you'll see them there. But most of them are about places to go, what to do in different cities or different countries. I've written mostly about Korea and Thailand, where I've lived. And next year, 2015, I'll be writing and traveling around Europe and also South America.
Great. I'm actually looking at your books right now, and one of the books is called Weird and Wonderful Korea. So
That's the most recent big book I've written. It's it's basically it's basically the book I wrote about Korea after traveling around for 5 years. It features over 100 of the country's weirdest, most unusual, most bizarre sort of destinations. And if you're traveling to Korea, even if you only have a week in the country, there's a lot of crazy, weird stuff you can see. And I guess if you're the sort of traveler that goes, I just want to see the mainstream places everyone else sees, this book is not for you. If you're the sort of person that goes, I have got to see the placentas inside the jars, and you go, huh? And in the book, there's actually a story about this Korean king, who saved the umbilical cords and the placentas of his kids. And you go, what the hell? And I go, exactly. So you can go to this place and you can take a little tour and you can see why he did it and how he did it and how these jars got to this little place in the middle of nowhere. You'd probably never hear about it in a regular sort of mainstream publication.
Well, that's definitely pretty interesting. So if I ever go to Korea, I'll make sure to read your book. Anyway, so let's get into Airbnb. How did you find out about it?
Well, I remember hearing about Airbnb back in Korea. It was the sort of thing you see it on a Facebook feed or a friend starts talking about it and you look into it and it goes, yeah, that sounds like fun. Where I was living in Korea, I didn't have the opportunity to rent out any space. I didn't have a space of my own for the most part, and the space that I ended up having was just too small to seriously consider renting. Quick note that most apartments in Korea are tiny. 50, 60 square meters is considered rather on the large side. So if you're looking for a place in Airbnb to rent, you definitely would recommend looking for like the whole space or the whole apartment to yourself, any sort of shared space or even like a private room. If you're looking to go to Korea as a guest, you'll probably want the entire apartment to yourself because a shared space might feel kind of cramped. But I actually came across your book right at the perfect time. Actually, I had put up an extra room in our Konken house for Airbnb, but wasn't getting any takers. I felt like I had pictures and the text just right, but it wasn't getting anywhere. And then I came across your book and said, well, he sounds like he knows exactly what he's talking about. And right as I was reading that, we were moving from Konken to Krabi, where we are now. And that was a perfect time to say, well, we're going to be looking for a new apartment. I'm going to consciously look for an apartment that has a second bedroom for guests. And so my wife was in with me, and we host guests every now and then when the reservations come through.
So did you see any improvements, like recently, with the amount of inquiries and bookings you get, or?
We've seen some. Now, bear in mind, I've been hosting people for about 3 months now, and we've had several people come through. One disadvantage to our current location: we're not in the easiest to find location. In fact, I ended up having to write out a couple paragraphs worth of directions in order for people to find their way here. The bus. The local white bus actually stops within 100 meters of our house. It just passes right by us along the main road, and so that. I figured that'd be a really easy way for people to get around. Turns out that despite some large yellow signs and specific directions and GPS coordinates in Google Maps, some people still have a hard time finding the place. So I'm not really sure what to do about that sometimes, but. Now, the moral of the story is that people are definitely looking for something specific. And I think the more time you spend as a guest looking for like just the right sort of place, the more happy you'll be. As a host, what you can do is beyond just describing your place accurately, really, playing up the benefits. We have a wonderful, quiet house. The loudest thing outside, beyond an occasional dog bark, might be the crickets. There's no zooming traffic. There's no tourist anything. There's no big bass speaker. There's no club music. It's just quiet. It's awesome. So I emphasize that fact to folks that look at the listing. If you're looking for a quiet place, this is the place to come. Mm-hmm. If you want to be right on the beach within a stone's throw of the sands, this place is not for you. I'd love to host you, but
and
I'd also rather not.
To go back to what you said earlier about the directions, what I've noticed as well is that some people don't prepare themselves too well. They kind of show up and then, and then they look on their iPhone on your listing to see where the directions are. And, I've experienced the same thing because I send all my guests a guidebook and it has, pictures of a map with a blue line that indicates exactly how to walk, and just like you, have plenty of directions. But I still get people asking sometimes. I'll get a text like 30 minutes before they're supposed to arrive, and they text me like, "Hey, I just got to Central Station. Like, how do I proceed?" But you know what? Like, the one thing that I want to do when I get back to Amsterdam is I'm literally gonna, when I arrive at the airport, I'm gonna use my iPad and I'm literally gonna film myself as I go to my house, and then I'm gonna put that on YouTube. And make it fast forward so it won't take too long, so that people can literally see me going from the airport to my house.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. No, part of the issue is people bring in their own expectations, their own mindsets about how to get around. Uh-huh. And even if I give like really good directions, people have still called me and asked, "How do I get to your place?" And my response is always, well, if you look at the reservation details, you'll see there are directions from the bus terminal, from the plane, from the airport, from the train station. There actually is no train station, but and the first two lines is literally the GPS coordinates and a short link to Google Maps. And then I hear, we don't have data. So you've come to Thailand and you've decided to not have get a local SIM card. Okay, that's fine. That's why I provide the other directions. You get on the only bus that appears at the airport, and it's literally one route. It's one bus route, and when it turns left, look for the sign. But I don't know. It's a sort of thing where you kind of wonder how people can screw something so easy up, and that's going to make me sound horrible. But no, I had one lady that asked me, how does a taxi get there? And I go, oh no, because here in Thailand, I can show a local my address. It can be in the Thai script, perfectly written. It's the exact same address as I would send a package through the post office, mm-hmm. And a local will not have any idea on how to get here. The issue is that the address often has little connection to the real world. So what I've ended up having to do a couple times, a couple people have they didn't get off the bus at the right place. So what I've ended up having to do is to go into town and find them. Oh, I'm at the da-da-da restaurant. Okay. So I find them and I say, hey, nice to meet you. And then we get them in a motorcycle taxi with sort of the taxi system around here. Mm-hmm. And I just tell them to follow me. And that works. It's slow and a bit more time consuming than it really should be, but it works. Mm-hmm. And then every so often you kind of go, well, are my directions really that crappy? Are people really not able to find the place? And then just when you think that, you have someone else that comes in and they find the place perfectly, no problem. And I go, thank you. That's an awesome guest right there who can find their way to your place on their own without needing all kinds of help. But no, it's I guess that if there's a moral to this at all, it's that the better directions you can give, the better. But be prepared for people that are unable or unprepared to follow them.
Absolutely, and I think that's a very good point. I've had the exact same experience, and even though the directions are good, sort of the last hour before check-in, I'm always watching. I'm watching my phone. I'm watching my email, because I just know that sometimes people just get lost. They forgot to bring the directions. They don't have an internet connection. They have, maybe they wrote down the address on a piece of paper, and
they lose the paper. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. And so I also have there's a little cafe near my place that everybody knows. Like you can ask anyone in Amsterdam, and they'll know that place. So I always tell my guests, if anything goes wrong for some reason, you're completely lost, just go up to a random person and ask for the name of this bar. Go there, there's free Wi-Fi, and then get in touch with me. That's
exactly.
the last resort option.
Yeah, so I guess so the moral is be prepared for people that have not followed the directions, and have sort of a contingency plan ready to go. If nothing else, having that I guess sort of set up in your mind gives you a good solid idea of plan B. It sounds more professional that way.
I was just talking to one of the guys who was on the Superhost panel on the Airbnb Open a few weeks ago in San Francisco, and he goes so far to specifically instruct his guests to write down the address, his phone number, and some more information on a piece of paper and put it in their pocket before they leave. So I thought that was quite funny. In the days of modern communication, it's actually not a bad idea to tell people to do that, because that piece of paper will always be there.
Yeah, if nothing else, just having the ability to communicate, even just by paper and pen, that often ends up being the best solution sometimes.
And maybe we can learn how to use smoke signals and pigeons and stuff like that as well. But let's go back to when you started out with your Airbnb listing. I'm just curious, did you have any concerns about starting with this?
Not really. My biggest concern at first was pricing, and also making sure it was worth the time and the effort. So what I ended up doing at first, like you recommend in your book, I started off with a lower than market price. And actually, I think even now I'm still one of the cheaper listings for a private room in Krabi. And part of that is because I know I can't charge the same price as someone that's closer to the beach or whatnot. But my only concern when I started was trying to ensure people could find the place, trying to ensure people could get around, and that they could enjoy their time in town. So to that end, I bought some yellow signboards. I made some signs. I hung the signs up. I put up, there's like a 2-page laminated panel in the guest room that has everything from the Wi-Fi password to some of the basic culture and customs about Thailand if this is their first stop in the country. And just try to pass on some of the basic information. I've got a couple of really big maps in the living room, and they're often conversation pieces. In fact, one of them, it's a map of the world. And so the blue dots are me, where I've traveled to, where I've been in the world. The red dots are my wife, who's also done a fair bit of traveling herself before we met. And I'll usually point out that there's also green dots on the map. Then I'll hand the guest a green marker, and I say the green dots are guests, where they're from. And so I get each guest to dot the map on their own, and they can kind of take a look around to see where else we've hosted people from.
Okay, well, that's great. That's a really cool idea. So, what are some of the countries that you've hosted so far?
We've had everything from, we had a guy from New Zealand, we had a couple of Slovenian ladies, there was a couple of folks from Sao Paulo, just from all over the place.
That's awesome. And what's been your most remarkable guest so far?
I'm not really sure I've had a really remarkable guest. I've had some interesting ones, but for the most part, what I've noticed is that people tend to want to come in and put their stuff down. I'll get them some water, and if they're talkative, if they're in the mood to chat, I'll kind of make myself available in the living room, and I'll tell them, "Hey, go grab a beer on me. Don't worry about it," and just sit and chat. More often than not, a lot of folks, they come in and they go, "Well, it's time to crash. It's time to relax," and so that's cool. Then sometimes they're up in the morning before we are, and so I go, "Okay, well, I'll see them when they get back." There's been a couple of guests that have been wonderfully talkative and had a lot of fun stories. There was a European couple that was going to motorcycle across Russia, and they're going to go literally from Georgia in Europe through Russia all the way out to the Pacific Ocean. And I thought, you're going to do that during winter through Russia? Okay, wow, that's a very interesting travel plan. So we had a fun time talking about places they've been and their plans for their future travels.
And how do you usually how do you tell your guests sort of what they can expect from you, or do you make them breakfast, or do you eat with them? Do you take them out? Like, how do you? Because I know this is one of the biggest challenges, I think, for Airbnb hosts who are renting out a private room. It's sort of like figuring out, does my guest want to interact with me? Does he want to do things with me? Does he want to share a meal or something, or does he want to keep by himself?
Well, I'd love to say, as soon as I have the 100% answer to that, I'll write a book of my own and make $1 million off of it. As far as, really, there's no easy way to tell. More often than not, what happens is I kind of just give them the once over. Do they look happy? Do they look sad? Do they look tired? Do they look alert, aware? After ensuring their stuff is dropped off, I get them some water or a drink, and I ask them what their plans are for tonight. I've invited a couple folks out to the local quiz nights here, which is like every Wednesday night, and it's there's a great opportunity to socialize, not just with me, but also a lot of the locals and tourists around the area. So one thing I've started doing actually is I recently picked up a second motorcycle, second scooter, and the intent is to rent that out to the guests for basically the same price as they charge in town. So that they can have a way to get around without having to worry about, well, am I going to get ripped off? Am I going to have to deal with a crappy scooter? And the sort of things that do happen sometimes. But as far as figuring out how sociable a person wants to be, you can kind of feel them out when you first start talking to them. If they give you the sort of basic polite answers and they're kind of, you see their eyes kind of going elsewhere, then they're probably ready to call it a night. More often than not, if you see them interested and engaged in the conversation, you can kind of take that to the next level, and I'll ask them, hey, have a seat. I'll get you a drink, and have a look at the map, and we go from there.
So it's pretty much just using common sense, just using your social skills to kind of get an impression of what your guest is really looking for. You mentioned the scooters. I remember being in Thailand and driving around on the scooters was one of the most fun things to do.
I gotta say, it is virtually necessary in this part of the country. For better or worse, there are a couple of there is a bus route that connects the airport to the bus terminal and down to Ao Nang, the big beach in the area, but it only runs that one route. In Thailand, there's also the Song Tao, which is basically a pickup truck with a couple of benches in the back, and that has a slightly different route. But again, it's only one route. If you're going to get around elsewhere, a typical taxi ride might be 250 or 300 baht, and that's about the same price as you pay to rent a scooter for the entire day. So the question comes down to: would you rather have a single taxi ride, or would you rather get around on your own? So. But yeah, having a scooter, I bought it. It's mine. I maintain it, take care of it. Got a couple of brand new helmets, and it'll be there for people to rent if they want. At first, I thought about lumping it into the Airbnb hotel fee, but I realized that I don't want to force every person that comes to my place to rent it. So it'll be available as an extra if you want it. If someone would rather go into town and find a place, that's cool as well.
Yeah, no, I think it's great to offer these types of extra services because these are things that people are going to be looking for anyway, right? And you might as well make a little bit of extra money on it. That's fair enough. And those little vans with the benches are those called tuk-tuks?
Song Taos.
What's the difference between
Song Taos and tuk-tuks? Okay, a tuk-tuk is in most places around Thailand a last resort way to get around. They're smaller. They're physically smaller. Picture like the size of a compact car. And you can usually get 2, maybe 3 people in. You can usually get the backpacks in. If you get past 3 people, it gets to be kind of dicey. Here in Krabi, they have some red vehicles that are a little bit bigger than a typical tuk-tuk and a little smaller than a song tao. They call them a tuk-tuk, and they can usually get about 3 or 4 people in. They're specifically for taking people from A to B as requested, essentially. The Song Tao typically sticks to their route, at least here in Krabi. Quick pro tip: if you're coming to Thailand, it's not the same across the country. The Song Taos in Chiang Mai, up in the north, for example, they're more like a shared taxi than a bus route. So if you're in Chiang Mai, you'll tell the driver where you're trying to go, and he'll say yes or no, and you'll get in the back. But most everywhere else you go in the country, the Song Taos will have a route, or they'll basically just go along the length of the road or the highway, and then they get to the end, they make a U-turn and come back the other way. So yeah, think of a Song Tao as something that sticks to a route, and a tuk-tuk as a vehicle more like a taxi.
Okay, interesting. So I didn't know that. So it's always good to learn something new. Anyway, we're getting to the end of this episode. It was really fun talking to you, Chris. And maybe you can let our listeners know again how they can find out more information about you and your Airbnb, where your Airbnb listing is, in case people are visiting.
Sure. It's my blog is over at oneweirdglobe.com, just like it sounds, One Weird Globe, and my listing is actually up in Krabi, and if it's going to be the picture of the outside of our house. I don't have the URL handy right now.
Well, I'll add it to the show notes.
Okay. Yeah. Just put it in the show notes. That'll probably be better.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So everybody, go out and check out the show notes at getpaidforyourpad.com/podcast. You'll see Chris's episode up there. And of course, we'll have plenty of resources if you want to find out more about Airbnb hosting. And you can also go to Amazon.com. And if you search for Airbnb, our books sometimes comes up first, even in front of the Airbnb application, which is kind of funny. And if you Google Chris's name, Chris Backe, you will also find lots of his books. A lot of them are about Korea. So if you're interested in Korea, then go ahead and check those out. And of course, check back every Monday and Thursday for another episode. And thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Get paid for your pad. 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 Get paid for your pad.